So were you always into rugby growing up, Tom?
There were other sports, but it was always started with rugby. My dad played rugby when he was younger, and so he took me down to my local club, or Lewis Rugby Club, when I was about 5 or 6, and started minis, and then grew up, played other sports, but I always sort of came back to rugby was my main sport, and it was mainly because it was my sort of best sport, and I enjoyed it most.
When you were playing rugby, how often did you play and train?
So club-wise, when we were younger, it was always just on Sundays, and then when it started to get a bit more serious at school, sort of when we got in secondary school, it was like one training session a week with them and a game a week, and then play on Sundays as well. But then when it started getting a bit older, into college stuff, it started getting maybe once a week, dripping into men's rugby, and then it was more training, say 2 or 3 times a week, and then one game.
Was the plan always to be a professional rugby player, or did it kind of happen? And when was the decision that you really wanted to actually turn pro?
The idea of a professional rugby player was amazing, but I never thought I would be one. I thought I would it was this thing on top of this pedestal that I thought, oh, that's really cool, that'd be amazing. But I'm one in a million kids who play rugby. It's not going to be me. And the way I sort of got into professional rugby, it sort of sums up how it was such a zigzag way of getting into rugby, and it was reliant on knowing people and playing a lot of different levels of rugby, not just one route, which I think sums up how I've got into my career. And then suddenly I remember one day like sort of thinking, oh, I'm a professional rugby player, and I'm doing it, and I'm making a career out of it now, which was a nice feeling.
So looking back on your career, is there anything that you'd change or anything that you do differently?
No, I'm pretty happy. There's obviously games and decisions and stuff that you're like, oh, I should have gone this way, and I've got a fair few like pinpoint moments in games that I can, from say even like 8 to 9 years ago, playing in the championship, that I'm like, oh, I wish I went this way rather than that way. But no, I wouldn't. Like, I've really enjoyed my rugby, and I think there's been a lot of great moments, but there's been a lot of low moments as well. But then the good moments are so much better from the hardship and the pushing yourself. I think I remember my first fitness test with England Sevens. I think I came last, and I thought, oh, this isn't the life for me. And then 2 years later, I was near the top, and I was like, oh, look how far I've come. That low moment where I thought, all right, this isn't for me, I'm not going to be fit enough for Sevens, and then lo and behold, I'm near the top now. I'm pushing the best. So that kind of those not regrets, but those instants of pain, you get sort of that sense of heartwarming and like your achievement from those moments.
So what made you come work for Lions, and what you enjoyed most about it?
I've enjoyed everyone's really quite happy, especially the coaches are really here to enjoy themselves, and I've been in a lot of places where coaching can be quite serious and quite intense, and it's serious in the fact that we want to be better, but it airs on the side of enjoyment to be better rather than pressure. I think that's a real enjoyment for the kids, and it's enjoyment for me as well, because I want to see people enjoying themselves, having fun, and then learning through that way, rather than trying to put pressure on and have quite a disciplined environment. It's more geared towards fun.
Yeah.
It's great fun.
What advice would you give to any young players growing up who want to be professional rugby players?
Take every opportunity you can. Don't be, say, a bit of a snob and turning down opportunities you think you're better than or something like that. Play as much rugby as you can and have fun with it. I think that's the most important thing. And one thing I always neglected, because I was gifted in speed and had that sort of aspect to my game, I neglected the simple things a lot. So people were like, your passing's not very good. I was like, well, I don't pass very much because I just run. And then when you get to the higher levels, suddenly, passing's not very good because you need to pass the whole time as well. So it's making sure your game's quite rounded at the same time as being good in one specific area.
So if you've been keeping up with England Rugby Sevens, or if you've been listening to our podcast, Lions Den, or if you've been on our blog or social media, you'll know that unfortunately, due to coronavirus, the England Rugby Sevens setup has all been made redundant. That includes Tom. So really, from me, I want to ask, what is next for Tom Bowen?
That's a very interesting question at the moment. We're as a program ourselves, a lot of the older boys, we're looking to try and find funding for ourselves and fund the program ourselves, and have the ability to keep our jobs and play what we want to play. We're a lot of us are sevens rugby players and want to enjoy it. We're rugby players, but we enjoy playing sevens. So we're looking to try and find funding in that area, but also looking to go back into 15s and play some rugby in the 15s era, which would be good fun. I'm excited to go back at the same time, but it's a very competitive market at the moment. I think the reduction in funding for the championship, reduction in salary cap for the premiership, has put a squeeze on a lot of clubs with reduced squads. It's a pretty competitive place to get a job right now. So yeah, working hard in the Lions is definitely keeping me busy.